true story. And when I have guests come into the museum, I have a good time because I love going up to them. And I always say, where are you from? A lot of times I say, what do you do? But the one thing I really try to say all the time is, I want to say, do you ever have anything weird going on? I don't want to tell them what I want to know. I just want to know if they have anything weird. You ever see anything weird? You ever hear anything weird? Sometimes they do. Most of the time they say, no, that's okay. I just wonder anything weird. So anyway, this was a couple months ago, and I had a group come from out of town, and we're involved in the passport program. Some of you don't know, but it's basically to bring tourists into Nebraska. It's really very successful. Anyway, so I said to this group, ever have anything weird going on? Nope, so that was okay. And they walked all through the museum, and they looked at all the exhibits, and there was one person there that came through and then sort of walked around out here for a second and was kind of thinking about it, and then they came back and said, well, I have something that's kind of weird, but I don't know if this is the kind of weird that you're talking about. And so I said, and this is what we always do, I said, come over and sit at this table here and just tell me your stories. And this is something that I think is really weird, is that it seems to me like since all of this stuff with COVID is going on, I've really heard some stories 5 times more than I ever heard before, and I don't understand why. I've heard stories about ghosts. I've heard stories about fairies. I've heard about a chupacabras, a couple. I've heard Bigfoot stories. I've heard every kind of a story imaginable. And a lot of times what I really try and do, if possible, is I want to go out and personally check it out, see if there's any information or any clues or anything like that. So that's what I try and do. So anyway, this person came up to me and said, well, I have a story, and I don't know if it's kind of the weird kind of thing that you like. So we sat down and we talked. And so this is the story. And as I look back, what I think is this story did not start this year. I know it didn't. I would get this story started 100 years ago, and it just keeps kind of unraveling little bit pieces and everything. So anyway, this person told me about this famous flag that was in Garrison, Nebraska, which is about 75 miles from here, something like that. And Garrison is really close to David City, so I kind of know where that is. So anyway, on Memorial Weekend, before that they've had fairly good rains, and that cemetery up there was really beautiful. The grass was so lush and green, and they had all been out there working, trimming it and mowing the grass and all that stuff. And so on the Friday night of Memorial Weekend, they went out and they put the flag up. And the flagpole is about 30 feet tall, something like that. Well, anyway, they put it up about 15 feet tall. We were supposed to fly it at half-mast in like remembrance of all the people that had died from COVID, and also the first responders, so many that had worked with that, and so that was why it was at half-mast. So anyway, they put it up. Saturday, the cemetery is only about half a mile from town. Just up a little hill, you can see it from the town. And there's a lot of people in that little town, and they walk. Sometimes some of them walk in the morning, and some of them walk in the evening. And so anyway, Saturday morning, people walked over to the cemetery and back. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. Saturday night, other people walked over to the cemetery and they walked back. It was just perfect. And so then, Saturday night, Sunday morning, some of the people had just got out of church. church. And so they were going to walk over to the cemetery and come back. And this one lady walked over and she was just horrified, absolutely horrified, because you can't really see it too much here, but I will say this flag is in 3 pieces, kind of. And she saw that and she just couldn't believe it, could not believe it. And so her dad is Jim Daro. So Jim, if you would come up here for just a second. And now, I just want to tell you a little tiny bit of background information about Jim. You can come here. Jim's Uncle George, is that right? Jim's Uncle George, 29 years ago, bought this flag. And Uncle George always took care of it. And told me that they only 2 days out of the whole year, right? They would fly it on Memorial Weekend and then build it all up and put it away, take care of it. And then also they would fly the flag on Veterans Day, only 2 days. So out of 29 years, it's only been flown 58 times. So anyway, I wanted Jim to tell you his version of the story of what happened next. And what I thought, skipping ahead a little bit. And so I got all these stories in there. And I'm going to give you a book. But it's not done yet. So Jim is one of the very first chapters in the book, and from then on, each person that I call on will tell you a different chapter of each book. So that way I don't have to read it to you. Okay? All right.
Okay, so everything Harriet says is the way it happened. It was Sunday morning, about 11 o'clock, when I first got told that the flag was torn. One of my daughters asked me if I had seen the flag at the cemetery, and I was on my front yard. So I could see the flag there blowing in the breeze from east to west, and just like the picture shows there. And I said, no, I hadn't seen it. So I happened to have an extra flag in my house, and I got my car and took the extra flag down there. I took a picture that Harriet has here. Take a look at that. But before I took the destroyed flag down, and we had a thunderstorm that evening, Saturday into Sunday. There was a thunderstorm. I don't know if there was I don't recall if there was a lot of rain with the thunderstorm. Because when I went out there, the cemetery was not muddy. There was lots of nice grass, and it was not muddy. As I approached the flag, I noticed that the new white cord that had just been put on there for the line for the flag was very neatly wrapped around a couple of pegs, which are 8 inches apart, wrapped very neatly and then tied off very neatly. So I don't know if that's was done by the person who put the flag up originally on Friday evening, or if it was put up by a subsequent person. So anyway, I undid it, I took the flag down, and I replaced it with a smaller flag, not near the quality of the one that was damaged. And took it home, and I never thought anything more about it. I just thought that the storm had ripped the flag. So that was on Memorial Day Sunday. June 14th, we're going to have a flag retirement ceremony in David City. I'm on the American Legion flag detail. So we were planning on burning that flag along with about 200 other ones that day that accumulated around David City in the area. Well, it turned out that it was very windy that Flag Day morning or afternoon, and so we decided not to burn any. We did get a picture of the flag where several of us are holding the flag out, the 5x8 flag, and it made the front page of the Banner Press and all that. And some of the people were very excited about they're going to find out who destroyed that flag. And one of my friends said he'd offer a $200 reward for information leading to the culprit who destroyed that flag like that. So I don't know about that. Well, anyway. So then, shortly after that, one of my friends from Garrison were out here and looking at the museum, because it's on the Nebraska passport system, and Harriet was showing her and her son the examples of the braided horsehair names and so forth, and she happened to mention, that looks like our flag from the Garrison Cemetery. And I can imagine how big her eyes got about that time. And so here we are. We sent the lady who found the flag, or discovered the association, commonality here, sent her several pictures, and then Harriet and Art and 2 other people came to the bar in Garrison, which we happen to be owners of, and I had the flag displayed on the 5x8 foot pool table in the bar. So when they showed up, and they spent probably 3 hours there photographing the flag and inspecting it, and it was really cool. And in the meantime, from the time they first heard about it till the time they came there the first time, another lady from town found some braided tree branches in the park right across the street from the bar. And they were little branches, probably the size of a pencil, I suppose, you know. And the branch had been broken off at about 10 feet up. It was still hanging. Somebody or something had braided those 3 branches together. They were hanging that far around. So I assumed somebody was just messing with us on that. We do have some cantankerous people around Garrison once in a while. So I assumed that that's what that was. However, Art and Harriet and the other people took lots of pictures of those branches, and they could tell you their own theories on that. So anyway, they came back another time, took some more pictures, and then I had it displayed in the library in David City on August 19th. And there was another program in the library, so we picked that day. So other people were walking in, and many people looked at the flag, and the David City Butler County Banner Press newspaper was there, took pictures, and so on and so forth. And so in the meantime, I have had people tell me, offhand, candid remarks that, oh, you know, I've seen Bigfoot before. I've seen something that I can't explain. I've seen a shadow here, a shadow there, or we've heard noises behind our house out in the country that we've only ever heard once. We haven't heard it ever since. So myself, I have never seen a Bigfoot. I have never seen, except him. Yeah, he's the first one I've seen. So, yeah. But anyway, no, he's right behind you. So I cannot, you know, I can't say that categorically that I believe in Bigfoot. I do know what I saw and what this flag has, and I can't explain that flag either. There are theories that it was just a thunderstorm. But when you see the flag, you'll be amazed at the twirling and the braiding and the knotting. So anyway, that's where I come from. I appreciate Harriet giving us a chance to meet you people here, and so on and so forth. But I do believe in things that I can't explain. I mean, I go to a church that we talk about believing in things visible and invisible. And so I'm not going to poo-poo anything that somebody believes that I have not seen physical evidence of myself. So.
Thank you.
Is that good enough? All right, thank you. All right.
And I tell you what, every person in Garrison has been so good to us and so kind. I really appreciate it. It's a nice town. So, the one thing I would just like to say, which is not a disagreement, when he talked about the trees in the park. Jim's bar is kind of like right here, and right across the street is their city park there. And if you just go up this way, like a half a mile, that's where the cemetery is. So this lady, well, when we went to the bar the first night, he had his pool table here and a big round table here, and we were sitting there. And people kept coming up to me like crazy the whole time I was in Garrison, and they were telling me one story after another about all these weird things. And I was going, wow, Jesus. And so this lady came up, lives right there in town, and she told me that every day, I think in the morning, every morning, she walks all the way through that whole park and looks around. Is that right? And she said, if there's a branch there, I pick it up, and if there's some leaves, I pick that up, and somebody leaves a Coke can, and then they must have a dump or something where she puts it. But she told me she does that every morning and every night. Well, for 10 years she's done that. And so anyway, she said, that Sunday morning was really weird. And I said, what was it? And she said, well, she went out and she walked around the whole entire park like she always does. There was not one leaf down anywhere. Not a leaf, no branches, nothing. There was nothing down. Until she got kind of sort of toward the middle of the park, and she just happened to look up, and about like this branch here, about that high, maybe not quite, there was a branch about that big. It was about like this, and right where it came off of the main tree, it was broken, just like that. Now, I thought about climbing the tree, but I didn't think I could make it. But anyway, I've got so many pictures in that museum where we think the Bigfoot have broken the branches. And a lot of times I have people here and they'll say, nope, that was just the wind. Which is true. As most of you know, we do have wind occasionally here in Nebraska. But when the wind blows the tree and breaks it, if the tree is like this and the wind blows, it snaps. Just like that. If there's another tree like where he is, it snaps. They're always the same. But it seems like when the Bigfoot break a tree, they reach up and they take a hold of it and they twist it like this. And so the bark goes around a couple times and then they break it. And when they break it that way, the bark is still wrapped around, but the tree, the branch is still held on. It's still attached. So I got as close to the tree as I could, and I was standing there looking up, and guess what? It was wrapped around. And that, boy, that really killed me. And so I was standing there, like right straight underneath the tree, just like this. And that tree, the branch had gone out. It came all the way down, just like this. It was about that far off the ground, I'd say a couple feet. And she says, but here's what was really weird about that. And I said, what's that? She says, look at this. You can picture it like the tree normally is. Branches down from about this big, like that. And so the main branch came down, and these other ones were like this, sticking out, but they went down. Somebody had taken those branches and pulled them all together like this, and then from there on down braided the branches together. I can tell you, I have never, ever seen anything like that, ever, where they pulled the branches down and they were braided together. And she says, I thought that was kind of weird. And I was thinking, so did I. I really thought that was weird. So we have pictures of that. It'll be in your book. So, anyway, another thing is that happened, these people just kept coming in all night long, and they were telling me stories, weird things that had happened all around this little town of Garrison for years. And that's when I met Bob. Come here. Now, Bob is from York, and he works at the conventional district in New York. Yep. And every other week, he writes a column that comes out in the paper, comes out in the paper, about whatever's going on around there. And so anyway, he came to the museum right after this happened, and so he had another weird story to tell me, so he can tell you the stories, okay?
Okay. came in June to visit. Todd Kirschenbaum was in the red shirt back there. He's been with Nebraska Tourism in the past. Comes here and program, so we try and follow that around during the summers. Once we came and met Harriet and got the stories and took a look around, he does a column every week, I do a column every other week. So we mentioned that in the paper, and I cannot believe how many people either stopped me on the street or called or emailed. I had a former deputy sheriff pull me over, not for speeding, but because because he'd had an experience. And one of our best friends from 30 years back had an experience. Hers was coming back from she was headed to York from Stromsburg and got about 2 miles out of town, and there was something large in the middle of the road, so she slammed on her brakes to avoid hitting it. She said it was white. I've never heard of a white one, but anyway, grabbed the back end of the car and started shaking it back and forth and scared me to death. So she punched the gas and took off and went back to Stromsburg. The former deputy, he and his partner saw something out in the field. Couldn't explain it. It was too big. It wasn't a deer. We don't have bears. Had another farmer, great big guy. Same thing as the lady friend of ours. Tried to avoid hitting something along the highway there, and slowed down, whatever it was, grabbed the back end of his pickup and started shaking it and rocking it back and forth. This guy has had a stutter since he was born, and he was so scared when he went in to report it, he could hardly get the story out because he was stuttering so bad. But I never thought York County would ever be an area, but it seems to be between Benedict and York, and then on into Polk County, which is pretty close to Butler County. So those are our stories for now.
For now. So I thought that was kind of strange also. And what I wanted to show, to illustrate, is that, as I said earlier, this is an ongoing story. That one you said was almost 30 years ago. And I was looking on the map, you can see Highway 81 goes right into York where the interstate is, but that's only, then you turn east and it's 14 miles to Garrison. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, it's about 14 miles. Well, that is a big nothing to these guys. 14 miles is nothing. And I thought, this was all in the same highway, same 3 instances, bing, 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 like that. That's a pretty big coincidence, if you ask me. That was really big. So that story, so that'll be in my book also. And then, this happened the day before the flag. And this lady came here also to the museum. I did not know her. And she came, and she had seen that article in the newspaper. And she says, yeah, I saw that about the flag. And she says, well, I had something weird happen at my house. Okay, what was that? And she said that she has a bunch of sheep, full grown. And I think she said she had 12. And so right at that time, it was kind of really hot and humid and muggy. And so around the noon hour, she was kind of concerned about her sheep, that they would be getting too hot. And also she wanted to double check that they had plenty of water. So she went home, and they were fine, and they had water, that was good, except one of her sheep was missing, and she could not find it. And so she looked all over, could not find the missing lamb. And so she had, I don't know if she went back to work, but she went back louder?
Talk a little louder.
Okay. So about 3 o'clock, she went back home again to check on her sheep, and that one was still missing, and she looked all over. She could not find that lamb anywhere. So then she had to leave again, and she came back early evening, about 5 or 6 o'clock. Couldn't find the sheep. The rest of them were fine. They had plenty of water and everything. And so she looked and looked and looked, and she finally found the lamb, but it was dead. And somebody or something evidently had taken a hold of the lamb, like around the ankle, and had pulled so hard it pulled its leg completely out of the socket here. And then, like, if you look at your leg, like this meat, like a thigh, like on a chicken, this whole thing, all the way around, it was completely gone. No skin, no fleece, no nothing. Pulled that clear out of the socket, and it was gone. And she looked all over. She never did find the leg, ever, never. And the funny thing was that lamb. She said, I've got a picture. It will be in the book also. It's not even bloody. There, you can just see it's gone. That's it. And so we have a really good friend that is a doctor, and it just so happened I have a lake just about like that. I was in Colorado camping a few years ago. We've been out walking through this big meadow, and there was a lot of flowers around it. It was really pretty. And so I just noticed, like over here, there was this big rock. It was about like this big, about that tall, all wildflowers around there. And I said this was an all-girl Bigfoot camping trip. I said, I want you girls to take a picture of me sitting on that rock because it was so pretty. And about this far away from the rock, there was another one about this big. And I go like this, and first time in history, I forgot my camera. So they said, it's okay, we'll come back in the morning and we'll take your picture, which we did. So, the night before, the person that was the leader of this camping group had shown us, and I think the Bigfoot do this, but if they don't, I don't know who else does. But anyway, when they eat a lot of times, I think the whole family comes over for lunch. It's like Thanksgiving dinner. And they eat, and they'll just take the bones and they'll toss them. And they toss them. Because they must go to that same spot a lot. And I saw one up at Macy. Did you?
Yeah.
It was it was about this long, about this tall, and there was all kinds of bones in there. And I was crawling around looking. There was raccoons and rabbits, and there was crawdads and turtles and garter snakes and everything that they had eaten. And then they just toss it in this killing field. That's what we call it. So anyway, we'd just seen that killing field up there the afternoon before. So I had my camera. I walked down. I'm all set to get my picture taken on the rock. And the first thing was the smaller rock had been tossed about maybe 10 or 15 feet. When I was looking underneath, it was all wet, like it had been there for a long time, and I'd probably maybe eating grubs or earthworms or something. Anyway, that rock was moved. So I went to go over, just like I'd done the day before, to sit down on that big rock. Right there, right in front of me, there was the leg bone of the deer. And it had this top bone is your femur, goes into your hip, and then your knee, and then the bottom bone is the tibia. And it was laying right there on the ground, right in front of me, and I looked at it, and at the time I did not recognize the significance. But that bone was fresh. It was still damp. All the meat was gone off of it, but it was sticky with blood. And so I said, I have to take that home. And so I didn't have anything to take it home in. So I brought bread for sandwiches for the week. So I just took my bread and threw it out on the ground, and I put the leg bone in my bread sack so I could take it home, which I did. So when I got home, there's a doctor that goes to our church. And so I snuck that bloody bone into the church, and I said, here, I got something to show you. And on that bone, this is real, and it's right in the museum. You can walk right in and look at it. There was one bone here, and then where the tendon was here, and then the other bone. When you looked at that tendon, it had been pulled out like this, and then it had been twisted around about, I'd say at least 4 times. And it had a little piece of hair that was attached to it, but the rest of it, you could see that tendon. It looked like a great big rubber band, and it was completely pulled apart. And so I showed that to the doctor, and he said, oh, for goodness sake, where did you get that? So I told him, and I said to him, how much pressure would it take to pull a tendon apart like that? And guess what he said? At least 700 pounds. He said if you had a vise and you had it bolted on a work table or a bench, you would have to have 700 pounds to pull that tendon. And so he could see it right there. And plus that little bit of hair was wrapped around. I brought it home. I brought it to the museum. And I did not think of that, the significance of that, until 4 years later, when she told me that that leg bone was missing. And to pull your femur out of your socket, that's got to take some strength to do that. So that was another really weird story that I've heard. And I've heard another one. This is somebody you know, Jim. A lady told me, she said, well, I had something weird happen in my house. And I said, what's that? And she, 2 things. You can stand right on her front porch and look that way, and you can see the cemetery. So I did that. And on her front porch, she's got like a railing like this, and then it's got like posts like this that go up and down. So you walk in like this, and her front porch isn't really big. It's like about this. Is that kind of a little bigger? Anyway, she's got a yellow lab dog. And the night that happened, always before she told me, they'd always let the dog out at night before they went to bed. He would go out and go to the bathroom and come back. After that night, she said, last time I talked to her, that dog will not go off the front porch at night. He will not leave, period. And she said where the spokes are like this, he'll stand there like this, and he looks out through the post, and she said he just looks at that cemetery, and he just stands there and stares. Now that's kind of weird in itself. But the other thing that she said was, like I said, you go into her front porch like this, and there's maybe this much room, and then there's a window right here, right? Does that look right in the living room? That first window, is that the living room? Bedroom? Okay, a bedroom. So it's a regular size window. It's like about this, like that. And then there's some space, and then there's another window, same size. And she said, well, when she came out the next morning, and she was on her front porch, she said, I thought it was really weird that somebody had sat down. She has 2 bushes, and they're lilacs, and they're not really, really big ones. They're like about that big around, and maybe like this tall, kind of like that. They're not, probably a couple years old. Well, anyway, she said, somebody came out and sat down on my lilac bushes. Both of them, these 2. And she says, I thought that was kind of weird. So she didn't want to lose her lilac bushes, so she goes out and she waters the bushes so they're okay. And so she goes out the next morning, guess what? Somebody'd been sitting on her lilac bushes again. So she stands them back up, she waters them again. She goes, that is really weird. So Jim took me over to this lady's house, And I was looking around, and this is what I think. I don't think they were sitting on the lilac bushes at all. I think that somebody had gone, and there's her porch, and they walked right down here. They were standing like this, and the lilac bushes was right here. And I think whoever did it was so big, they had to squeeze between the bushes and the porch. And I think when they did that they went like this, I mean, because they were big, but they were the exact height that you could look right absolutely straight into that window. Exactly, both of them. And like with me, of course I'm a midget, and he said, well, I can't do it. And I said, why not? And he said, because they're going to burn it tonight. And I went, burn it? Oh, do not burn that flag. Jim, you can't. Do not. He says, well, I'm sorry, but the ceremony is already set, and we're going to burn the flag. And I just felt sick. Oh, I really did. I felt sick. And I thought, you cannot burn that flag. That's an important part of history. And so anyway, they go to have the ceremony, and I think you guys kind of had whatever you do there, or talk, or for the flag. And so they were all set to burn it, and we had an intervention by a higher power, and all of a sudden the wind came up and it went through, and the wind was so strong they couldn't light the fire to burn the flag. And so the next day they called me, gee, Harriet, I'm really sorry, we couldn't burn the flag. And I go, yeah, I'm sorry too, man. And I was going, thank you, God, for saving that flag for all of us. And so anyway, I think what they do at these ceremonies is that, I think, they have somebody plays taps, is that right?
That's part of it. Yeah,
Sometimes?
Inspect the flags and you present them, and a whole bunch of verbiage we talked about.
Yeah, and
It's flown in places of honor and the cemeteries and people's homes, and it's a retirement. It's not just a flag burning, it's a flag
retirement.
retirement.
I say that wrong every time. I'm sorry. And but is it? Do they have like a 21 gun salute? Only not that many.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Well, that's what I wanted to do, because I wanted to have a retirement just like you guys do, but I could never get it together because I called the American Legion because I didn't know who to call here, and I could never find anybody, so I had to cancel that part. But I found Louie, and Louie is one of the teachers at Hastings College in the orchestra department, the music department. And oh, John left. He told me, John belongs to her, that they could find me somebody that would play taps. So what I wanted to do, so we can have just a little break here, and he has another commitment. Is that right? So I would like Louie to play taps for us with respect to the flag, the retirement. Is that okay? So, Louie, you want to come up now? And I am sorry, but I cannot even remember your last name.
That's okay. It's Eckhart, Louis Eckhart.
Louis, oh yes, I know. Louis Eckhart, the grocery store here in Hastings, 75 years ago.
And I'll play from back here so that you guys can focus that way and just listen rather than watch me.
Okay.
Just out of more respect.
Oh, okay. You want to stand?
Yeah.
Take your hats off, everybody. Yeah. you. Thank you. Alrighty, so I want to continue on here. If you're tired of sitting, you can stand up for a while or whatever. Okay, what I wanted to do was I wanted to introduce to you a really special friend of mine, and that is Mr. Richard Soule. He is from Lincoln. He does a lot of work with autistic people, and he does a lot of work, boots on the ground exploring. And so anyway, I called Richard and I sent him the pictures of the flag, and that got his attention. So you want to come up here and just tell him a little bit? Thank you.
Yeah, Harriet contacted me. We've known each other for quite a few years now. I originally was on the first expedition here in Nebraska with the BFRO. And since then, I've it didn't take very long, maybe a couple of years, I graduated beyond the BFRO and got into research on my own that expanded beyond that. I am what I like to call a hominologist, which is a term that Dmitry Bayanov came up with back in the early 70s about the study of biped hominids around the world. And so I've, through the research that I've done over the years, I've become friends with some of the Russian researchers and have affiliated myself with the study of hominology. And it's not a science yet, but I do believe it will come to fruition very soon with all the gathering evidence that we have, and especially the DNA evidence that that will be culminating from the algorithms that will be developed through the deep genome searching that we're doing. But we'll find that this is a relative of ours in the ancient past, and we will see that there is a connection. I talked to Don about this earlier today, and I think we both came to agreement that there's some common ground there in our history as far as ancient history and DNA, that these hominids are related to us. This is a world phenomenon. When I talk about hominology, it's the study of the Yahweh in Australia, the Yeren in China, the Yeti in Nepal, Russia, and of course the Sasquatch here in the United States. When Harriet sent me that information, the picture of that flag, I immediately saw the connection to the braiding of the horsehair that is typically associated with this, and I know Don's going to talk quite a bit about that, but knowing the region, when she said it was Garrison, Nebraska, one of the theories and research that I have is the karst systems, which is a part of our ecosystems. And if you look in Nebraska, we have a strip of karst, which is actually wet and dry cave systems. It's actually created through underground caves that are created much from like our aquifer that we have in the state, and then also just run off from rainwater and this type of like Dakota sandstone that create cave systems. So I looked on the map for the U.S. karst system. I saw it ran right through Garrison. So that's something I pointed out to Harriet, that I felt that this was a prime ecosystem, that we would have these hominids living in a subterranean nature here in the state of Nebraska. And we've, through the research I've done, there is a lot of correlation between sightings and karst systems around the world. So I think it's very solid research. And Don and I talked earlier, and he's gotten into a lot of caves, and I think he'll agree that he's found a lot of evidence of caves that they exist in these cave systems. This goes all the way back to lioness troglodyte. When we talk about hominology, we look at one of the binomial nomenclature, which was the science we have today that gives us Homo sapiens, that we are Homo sapiens, or Homo troglodyte, which is the cave-dwelling man, is also something that Linus had associated as a separate. I think that's important to keep that in context, because science of hominology is a long time coming to fruition, but it has its roots very solidly in our scientific community, and we will see that come to fruition here once the science catches up with the DNA, the evidence that is being gathered. There'll be algorithms through computers, and some of the research I've done, I've connected it to MUC7E gene down in sub-Saharan Africa, and to Quit, which is from Georgia, is a relative of Zana, which is a leshy or a Russian snowman, a yeti that they believe existed in that area and interbred with people. So, long history of interbreeding, emergent hominids coming together, Neanderthal, Denisovian, and there's another subspecies in sub-Saharan Africa that I believe we'll be able to trace to the Yeran, Yahweh, and Sasquatch, the Yeti. Tying all this together, Garrison, Nebraska, it was fascinating to me, so I right away, I sent this information to Dr. Igor Birdseff, and he has been here to Nebraska. He's been on an expedition up in Macy, and he came and saw us here, or Harriet, when you came to Lincoln. And he was a guest of mine to conduct research here, and part of it was an affiliation with the research that we had done on this DNA that I was working on. But I contacted him because when he visited with me the first time I met him, he talked about his first expedition was in the Caucasus, the Pamir Mountains range, and they were investigating horsehair braiding. And it's the very same horsehair braiding you'll see in this museum that was going on in the Caucasus regions of those mountains. It would be the northern Caucasus Pamir Mountains, and that would be in Georgia.
1969.
1969.
You sent me that picture.
Okay, so yeah, it was between like 65 and 69, and so that was the first expedition he was on. This was 65. It was with Marie-Jean Kaufman, who was a French surgeon, and was one of the first people that developed hominology as a science. So, I just found that fascinating to connect this now to the Garrison story, that some of the first thoughts that I had with Dr. Birdseff was regarding these horsehair braids. So, tying it all together, the region fits really well with that karst system. We have the Platte River, which is a major river system here in the state, and we have the large aquifer that is also a part of our state's history and our ecosystem. These things are very much something that a large hominid that would eat meat or eat a lot of meat would need to digest meat through having water, drinking a lot of fresh water, and so they're going to need to be close to either a spring. Even if there's a river close by, they may just choose to get the fresh water coming out of an aquifer spring. So a lot of times, Harriet talked about those bone piles. They will be near a spring head where they are eating and then just drinking from this fresh water. So Garrison is in that ecosystem that I would associate with this. Also, I've been doing this type of research that was over 10 years. It was 10 years ago when we had the first expedition here. But I've been privately doing my own research for the past 8 years. And I'm also a member of Omaha Res Squatching, and have developed a lot of research with the Omaha Reservation with my brothers Barry and Derek Webster there. So I've had a lot of experience throughout the state. I've been all over the state. I've been to various regions of the country. And so I could tell from the tree structures and all the things that we associate with them, that they are here. They are part of our history. They've been here before us. They most likely interbred with Native Americans before the Europeans came here. And They are very close genetically, probably 99% genetically associated with us, maybe a 1% difference, and that 1% is just enough to have these different features that allow them to live in the wild, whereas we tend to domesticate the world that we live in. So it doesn't surprise me when I've heard these sightings, because before I've heard any of these, I had talked to people. There was a farmer that was up near David City that said he saw a bear when he was hunting one time. He told his whole family, he swore he saw a bear standing up and then run on all fours. Well, we don't have any bear in Nebraska, and even the states that we are near that have bear, it is very far away from the Garrison, Nebraska, so we would not have any bear. And I told him I felt like that was, he had a sighting in the Sasquatch. Another time there was, I thought it was interesting, you said a deputy sheriff in, maybe it was York County, but there was a report from a deputy sheriff in Seward County that he had a sighting, and he had reported it. He had enough of the sighting, I didn't get the details of the second-hand information to me, but it was enough that he wanted to report it to somebody. So I thought that was fascinating. So we have a long history, and even I'm from the Lincoln area. In Lincoln, in 1957, Charles Starkweather, who was a mass murderer, he's famously known for the people he had killed. When he was in jail, he talked about to the press, and he gave a story that was later released as Death Had a Sagittal Crest. He talked about when he was younger in Lincoln, living near Salt Creek, that there was a bear-type woman that looked like a bear, had breasts, and had kind of a cone head, that would come to his window in the morning, and then when she would leave, she would have a mournful, sorrowful howl as she would leave. And he talked about this experience, and he thought it was death following him. He was kind of inclined to the homicide or the dark side, but he associated it with death following him. But it's very much a classic Sasquatch site. And in the Lincoln area, we have a lot of cave systems there. We have many creeks that come into confluence there also. And that's where the Pawnee Native Americans would have been living. Also all the salt that was there in the early 1800s, and we had a lot of companies come, like Morton Salt came here to get the salt. There was an inch thick of salt. So that was bringing in a lot of the wildlife, the buffalo. They were certainly living in those regions at that time, and it was only through history where we began to kind of repopulate these areas or start coming into these areas and push them out of their habitat that we're now starting to have those encounters, because we've taken a lot of their habitat away from them. They still are largely operate at night, so we know that that's a characteristic. Have something that's very large and living underground is going to be cool during the summer. It'll be about 55 degrees, and then during the winter time it'll be warm. So that subterranean nature of them will keep them hid from people by and large, but it also allows them to live in environments that we would think would be suitable for them. So there's a lot of history to that. Of course, the Native Americans, all of the Native Americans around the country have names for in this state it's the Hinsky-Benu, or the Hairy Man, or the Sea Tonga, which is Bigfoot, and that's in the Omaha language. And then in other states, we have Sasquatch, we have just all of them are kind of related to characteristics of them that we would, Native Americans tend to name them after very physical characteristics or things they actually do. Like they might walk in long strides, so there'd be a name for them if they walk in long strides. Just a very long, rich history in our country, and I think some of it has been disconnected because they were suspect of disease contagions, and I think when you looked at the introduction of diseases such as smallpox that came into this country 500 years ago, you saw the Native American population decrease. I think you also saw the population of the Sasquatch decrease. And so once that was epochs, and you saw the same thing in Europe, you saw the Black Plague happen, and you saw the wood loose in Europe, you saw a decrease in their population, and then you didn't see, you saw them, they were pictured on churches, they were very much part of the lore of Europe also, just like in Native America here. But then they kind of disappeared once these contagions took place. So you didn't hear a whole lot about them, and people thought it was more folklore. Now they're rebounding in Europe, they're rebounding here. We're seeing more and more encroaching on their habitat. So it does not surprise me that people are seeing more and more of them. And I just think it'll be a matter of time before science catches up with that. So I think that's my thoughts on Garrison. I kind of shared a lot more than just Garrison, but I do think it validates a lot of the experiences that the flag had. Dr. Burtseff had sent pictures. He also has similar research that Don has, so I'll let Don talk about that. But I just wanted to be clear, the same sort of thing was going on in the region of Georgia, of Russia, with this braiding is happening now with this flag here in Garrison. Is no coincidence. These things are happening because these hominids are doing these same things all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And one thing that Richard reminded me of that I forgot, I'm still saving the best for the last. Well, no. No, it's okay. But what I wanted to say, when we have dinner, we'll eat about 5, but before that, I want to take everybody, have a chance to go through and see the flag now. And I think I'm going to be standing around in that area, so I can just kind of point out some things, because even after I got home, Jim, I couldn't believe the things I found that I had missed, because some of those braids, Don and I were out there the last 2 days. Some of the braids, they are not any longer than that. And not only that, some of them are made with 2 threads. They are hard to see. So that's what I thought. If I stand in here, I can kind of show you, sort of, so you don't miss some important things as you go through. And then the other thing is, I'm going to have Don speak next, but if you would just kind of stand around where your exhibit is, and you could kind of point out some of the things to the people as they come through. Is that okay? Okay. So, now, Don, you can come up here. And Don is one of my very favorite friends. And I went to Texas on purpose a year and a half ago, right now, specifically to meet him, because I had heard about his book, The Braided Horses Are Coming. I had never, all these years I've been around Bigfoot people, and I've gone to 100,000 conferences, and I never, ever, ever heard about the braided horses. So I really wanted to know about that. So anyway, I went to Texas, I met him, we became really good friends, and as you walk through the museum, he has donated a lot of things here, a lot of things, and helped me and advised me. And my book, which will be coming out in the next 10 or 20 years, I hope, and whatever pictures I want, which I have done, and I've put his name on everything. So it's not my credit, but I just wanted him to kind of give you a little basic background information. And I will say, when this person sent me the very first pictures from Garrison, I almost fainted when I saw those, because I knew that they were exactly like his. So when I sent copies of those pictures to you,
I'll start now.
you can start now.
Okay, I got to, first of all, I don't take too long because I've been called the king of BS, and so I get started and I get carried away. I'm enthusiastic because I have been all my life. And I'm introverted in many ways, but in this field of exploration, I just can't get enough. I've been doing this for over 60 years. And Harriet's got energy that I can burn in her speech. She tells she's enthusiastic. There's no one like her in this world I've ever met, a female with quite the, and well, she has all the things you need to be a male almost to get out there in the field. And I can't take her along, and I won't, because I don't have the gender differences. I have met that more than once, and it's okay. Some of them are superior to men in a lot of ways, they are. But there's mixed problems there with that sometimes. We get different reasons. But anyway, get into what Richard just said. I got to back him up a little bit too, and also what she said first. But this horse thing, this grading, and this flag is the main event here is, and stay there, but it does magnify in the horses grading, and also, we didn't mention, we will, there's rope over here tied on the place, but rope ties too. But caves are real important, and there's caves in Montana where it's 40 below zero outside, and it's 45 degrees in Fahrenheit inside. I only found 3 of them like that in all the many caves we've been in. But where they exist, there's also aeration that comes in from some source. I've made an effort to find where it comes in. You can live in there at 45 degrees all winter when it's 25 and 35 to 40 below zero. And so that shows you how it's possible to live in caves in the most remote parts of Europe and Asia. The China Wall over in Tibet and so on. There's places where I've talked to monks over there too, and they believe implicitly in the Yeti and Almasy and other names. There's a valley over in Asia called the Arun, A-R-U-N. It's deeper than the Grand Canyon. It's deeper than any place on Earth that we know about. It's even not even talked about much, but there's 4 types of Yeti down there they talked about that never been really analyzed. And all types of people who live there never come out. That's another topic, but anyway, Hillary and so on, that validated there was no Sasquatch and no Yeti because they had a great big bunch of people with them. You look at the expeditions, and they take too many people along. I mean, more than 4 is too many. It really is. You got too many feet in the woods, too many noises, and too many differences of opinion. But anyway, validating what he told you about Nebraska, I've been here 4 times recently in the last 2 years, and I've never been here before that. At age 16, I came across here on a freight train, and I got stuck here 4 days in the cornfields trying to get back to where I could find my way back to Montana. Anyway, that's when I first saw this part of the country, and I never realized what was out here. And now you have forests on both sides of these rivers that goes, it's endless. Buffalo Bill days were out here when they had the things that the meat, the protein he mentioned. And the buffaloes were the reason the Sasquatch were here initially. Now it's corn probably, and also the foods around here that have natural, all the fishing game is here in plentiful numbers. And the sanctuary here is amazing. Right down here is a short ways away, right here in the backyard. Now, something you'd never considered in Nebraska is your line of vision. Right across this cornfield, they could be 25 yards away, you wouldn't know it. In Montana, they're 2 miles away, you see it's different kind of terrain to look around. I mean, I can take a field glass in Montana and see something way away, far away. I've done it in California, all the places I've been, but in Nebraska, you can't do that. So you got your plane of vision is real limited, and that big Sasquatch can come closer up. I hate the word Sasquatch entirely, but the furrow wild people. As you mentioned, they're furrow wild people, and that's what they are. But there are very many kinds of them because the gene pools aren't the same. We covered that a while ago, me and him, on this conversation. We both agreed. And what's interesting, we found this out separately in our lifetimes, just met, but his conclusions are down there exactly what I had. Not that I'm the last word, but people like, he mentioned Russians and so on. I've been in Australia on this, on the Yowie hunts. Brought tracks back from Australia that match the ones here. And there's 2 kinds of Yowie, but in her efforts on this flag, I'm going back there a minute, some of those braids are thin as a toothpick. They're not impossible, but they are ironic, and they're also improbable. I mean, it doesn't happen, it can't happen, but it did happen, so it is what it is. There's no explanation for them because you just can't explain these braids. Anyone who's tried to braid has to have a connection to hold on to make a braid even to start. And these, some of them are only a ½ inch long, and she mentioned an inch. And they're almost invisible unless you look at them really close with a magnifying glass. This happened on a rainy night with rain coming down and the wind blowing, and who knows what's going on in the storm. There's no mud in the flag. It wasn't lowered down into the mud because there was no mud there. I understand it was grass, but there still would be some kind of debris on the bottom, even on a rainy night. Not there, but it may have been lowered down and done to. But if it was lowered down and done to, it still has to be done with more than one effort to do it. I don't want to go with fairies and pixies, but if you take a person almost as small as fingers to get down and do work that's making the big toothpick is with. And I can't explain it. I don't plan to do that. I'll try to. But we have so much in this world going on that's strange right now, and she mentioned that. And I'm not a preacher. I'm not going to go there, but this is the last dispensation of time. I think we're going to maybe 1,000 years longer, or 10 minutes. So we're close to the end. In many ways, because of our whole world situation. It's not just the corona, but it's time. And get back to the flag. This flag is so desecrated, so ruined. The field of the stars, the blue part, isn't touched. And that hasn't been answered or dealt with very much, but it's amazing the blue field hasn't been touched. 50 stars. I've thought about it a lot because that's on my mind. Why in the world it didn't go there with that desecration? We left the stars there. And one more thing, generally with Sasquatch type people, little wild man, they've adapted to us, not us to them. They cease and desist. They want to carve arrowheads or make spears when they can find broken glass. And you got all the amenities they need to have in this, all the anomalies to use here at hand. It's rarely out there available. Old modern hobo, yesteryear's hobo, now a different. This piece of glass I give it to I think it's the type of thing they cut the flag with. Because a knife, I'm a bear hunter. That's my story. But I hunt bears all my life. I know they're very good at people. When you think of the knife on the flag, if you did, it'd be a cleaner cut. The scissors would be obvious. But this here is torn, long cuts. I mean, it's like obsidian or an arrowhead or a piece of glass. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. I'm not going to say I know about it. I'm pretty sure. And I skinned rabbits with that kind of thing. And if you can skin a rabbit or a deer with a piece of glass, you can see how they could do it too. I'm kind of a mountain man type. I've always been in the woods. So anyway, getting back to our story about the Russians and Santa and Kavit, their sons, they've even done DNA tests on the children of Santa, and they're married into our society in Europe, and they're human. Ancestral mutations is part of the problems for them now. I've got many casts in my collections that show deformed fingers and toes and hands and so on, and feet and things that are disallowed by most of the Bigfooters because they aren't the board type, flat-looking casts that most people show. And if you get a chance, Art, show you if you have him with him. Actually, the show's over here. We're inside, I think, the cast. He's up here locally, and they're really wonderful casts. He's doing a great job. And they show you the irregularity of what I'm talking about that you don't see in most Bigfooter stories. And I'm not putting Bigfooters down. There's a lot of good ones out there, if anyone. There's a lot of them are vultures, too. And, but her flag is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. In a physical effort that had a purpose. It has a purpose. What it is, the message it is, we don't know. I don't think I ever saw the problem, but you must look at it closely. Take time. Don't be bashful. Go down there and make a hold of braids you want to. Don't try to unravel it, but look at it. They're smaller than almost like a pin. And they're braided. This is just more than amazing. Well, I got a book out, and it's still out there for the last 10 years or so. It's not a big seller. It's not anyone. But it's called The Braided Horses Are Coming. It's a 5-star book, and in fact, I didn't rate that down. They did. People did. But it's still selling. It's still coming on the market in slow motion. On the cover, it's not me. There's a wrangler on there. There's a famous wrangler who died recently. I studied with him in his home ranch with 150 horses. He had 85% of them braided the same day, same nights of the week. and most of them are females. In estrus, that's when they're going to have a coat. And I've got one braid, I think it's in the museum, I'm not sure it has milk in it. I got one braid in there, the only one I've found that I can validate that for sure. Estrus milk when a pregnant horse is having the babies, the milk is formed as pre-milk before they have the milk that they suckle. It's in the braid. Now I have a theory, and it's all it is, that they have more than one creature working at a time. Mare's milk is drank all over Asia. It's called Christmas. It still is. And Genghis Khan and so on, you read about it all everywhere. But I think these Sasquatches also take part in suckling the mare's milk from horses. And read the book, I wish you would. It covers a lot of areas, moon phases and astrology, astronomy, and Bigfoot, not Bigfoot by the name, Sasquatch, and all kind of things that are around the world. The girl with me who did the book was the Indian lady, and we spent about 9 years looking at that book over, and not all, she wasn't there the whole time, but she was really proud of it. And when she died, just before the book was on the market, it's a sad thing, but she did. She had a journal she kept separate from my journals, and I found it just in time to incorporate some of her comments, and they're very gender humorous about exploration and shows the differences in how they got to handle that. And like you keep the candy bars on going to town, it's in there anyway, it's pretty funny. But it's also educational on being in caves and seeing shadows of mountain lions going out ahead of you and all kinds of things she wrote in there that I would never write, but it's wonderful stuff she wrote in there that gives credit to exploration and the fear and the exhilaration and the anxieties you get, and also the you just can't hardly wait to go back. My crews have been famous people, a lot of them are. And you know, knowledge of like M.K. Davis, for example, and Ron Moorhead, and Joe Taylor coming this week up here, and different guys, a bunch of them. But I've been more of a guide than I have been a Bigfooter. I don't really like the word. But I'm looking for hominids and hominid evidence, wild hominids. I've been in Asia, Indonesia, I've been in a lot of places on this thing too. Mexico, down in the Copper Canyon down there, it's like the Grand Canyon. I've been Canada and parts of Alaska. Anyway, it don't matter. But it does matter because this all comes together in the totem poles, in the Indian legends, and when you get into what Buffalo Bill even said here in your own state, her relative, by the way, I can't remember where I read that in his books, the books he had out. The thing in the movies, you see how, they want to see how, Indians. That wasn't why they said that. They want to see the fingers, to see what kind of hands you have. And the Indians will say how, but they learned that from white man what kind of thing was. They want to see your hand look to see what kind of creature you were facing. Because the same thing's in Polynesia. I'm more into Polynesia, I'm about the mainland. And I was out of the sea on this thing too, and there's no Sasquatch in Hawaii. There's not even one story. It's the only place I can't find it. But they are in every part of the world almost to find Bigfoot stories of sorts. In Hawaii, there's a reason for it, and I think I know what it is, but it's like long. I think me all day to tell you. I had to go to navigation, but I'm sure Richard's research is really locally wonderful, and Art's really doing well in his art, art and doing casts. I talked to him today and commended him for what he's doing on how he passed the casts are going out. There's real art in taking casts. I mean, you can overlook so much, so easy, so easy. That's more valid than what you take. I've got thumb marks, I've got elbows, I've got broken arms up to here. They lay down hiding from me in the brush, in the caves. I've got body casts, the only one I know about, where juveniles going into a sand bed in a cave. A lot of people don't know this, but they call them digger Indians, but that's a common name. It wasn't all of them, but they call them that in the West, where they dug camas roots, different kind of roots and bulbs to eat, and they call them digger Indians. Well, that was a white man's derogatory story. But they did dig the camas roots. A lot of them dug into holes in the ground and slept in the sand dunes, away from the wind and the rain and so on. And they dug into holes like a rat beds, like a geyser. And riverways, the bank beavers were here and they still are. And when they make bank beavers dig into the side of the banks, the rivers, I'm sure along your waterways you'll find where for a while people might still live in caves underwater. In Russia it's a common story. In Asia it is too. In China it's a common story. Get out in the water and go into, in Hawaii it's the same way, not Sasquatch, but there's stories in Hawaii that don't really mind. But I want to thank her for being here on this thing. I told her not to take too long, I won't. And I get started, I get go for a week and never say anything twice. Or I just can't believe how much there is to learn. I can't live long enough to make it work. My intentions are, the little I know is not enough, but I want to get it out before I die. I'm getting older. I'm starting to fall apart. I got more scars than I got time to talk about. But anyway, I hope I get some more books out. I've wrote 4 or 5 books now, but my first 2 books are on the market somewhere buried in the debris of the trash can, but they all came through. I wrote a book called 2001, 2003, both those books. The first book took 50 years. I didn't even join the Bigfoot community for 50 years, and I want to see how close I can come to what they found out. But now my first book is $200 a copy if you find one. And I only got one I put in the publishers when I first published the book. But the thing is, the things we discovered in that 50 years before, in 1949, I'm 84. The publisher stole it from me, didn't want to publish it, and I went and did it, wrote it again, but from memory, got it out for ages. And that book is called Sasquatch 2001, but that one's on the horses right now, I'm showing it. It costs about $20 or so. You're making money on it, I don't care. It's just out there to get you an education on what you need to look for. It covers this braiding quite a bit, and what's ironic, I gave her this morning, I didn't know I had it, in my picture collection here. I took a picture about 18 years ago in a cave of braided tree roots. And I laid it on a knife blade to get and she got it. I think I showed it to you, don't I?
Yeah.
Well, that shows the tree connection here. The tree connection goes into every Native American belief. And beyond that even, but horse braiding and the rope tying and all this stuff is a message, it's a language, it's humor, it's also serious. And I can talk all day about that and go pretty deviate, but time allowing, you got to get in here and see it. Take time to look, don't just go like that. Take a look, it's impossible to see that. I don't mind to find glass in there somewhere in a bottle, but I tell you what, I can't believe what I'm seeing here, and I haven't seen it all yet. I've been here 2 days looking at that down there. You go down and you find where the frays are, they tore it open with the knife and the glass, and they're all going the same direction. And some of those frays are even braided. This can't happen, but it's what it is. Popeye says, I am what I am. Well, you can change that. You can change your attitude. Be something different. But this young man here, we took out to the field first time a year ago or so, and we got a thank you for doing Sasquatch. Yeah. Did a good job of that. Yeah.
You stay awesome.
Get yourself a girlfriend, okay?
What? You stay awesome.
Huh?
You stay awesome.
You're awesome. This guy here has been a volunteer. He works with the Harriet Museum as a free worker. He's going to be a researcher someday.
Yeah.
But that's about all I got to say, unless you got a question that answer quickly. I won't take too much time. I was told to take 3 minutes. Because she knows how full of BS I am. And she was scared I'd take too long. I don't want to do that. But I'm here for a week. We got Joe Taylor coming from the museum in Texas to go exploring with me. We'll be here Friday for 1 day or 2 days, that's all. I may go back to Texas with him because I got some things down there. He's into pterodactyls and he's into chupacabras and he's into giant snakes and all kind of things that you would never believe possible in the United States and Canada. But the crypto guys who are serious, the real explorers are out there, but they're not out there for popularity. I'm probably on 100 places on YouTube I could care less. So I'm on there. On a recent expedition just about a month ago, we found 4 beautiful tracks down in the northwest Hastings wilderness in Nevada, about 10,000 feet, 8,000 feet. And N.K. Davis and I am another guy, Ken Bear. But we found giant evidence again. I'm into giant studies too. And I'm the guy that found the handprints in Lovelock Cave a few years ago that's internationally famous. And there's a head in there, a statue, and we'll see it. I found in Montana, a stone head that never been identified in all these years. It's been everywhere and had over 100 comparables in the world to see who carved that. No one knows yet. Minoans or Etruscans or Greeks or Indian. I don't know. It's in there in the museum. That was found hunting bears. And one more thing on bears, they cannot walk one step after standing up. All these cartoons you see are ruining our chance to teach a kid the truth. A bear can't walk even one step. Exception to that is the dancing bear in Turkey. They can make it jump, dance, it's cool, but they don't walk. They're not anatomy-wise created to walk at all except on all fours. And if a thing runs off on all fours, it could be a Sasquatch too at times, because you ever heard of Mowgli? A true story of a wolf boy? He never did walk on his hind legs. That story is one you don't even know about. It's in India, raised by wolves, and he ran on all fours. And there's the jeweled hyena of Africa the same way. I know other stories. But I want to admonish you that the research on their own, they did the manuscripts on their own, considered something worth reading, and use your own discretion to figure them all out. Exhilaration, be enthusiastic about it, and stop watching ball games for the night. It don't even matter. Take time, that ball game kind of stuff in there, to watch a football game to learn a whole bunch of stuff. I used to play football, but I don't like to watch it. I'm watching those guys and turn me on too much, you know. So, thanks for listening. I'll get that done. But Harriet is authentic, and by the way, this museum is self-supportive. It's not funded by anybody. And we try to donate to it as we can. And we invite you all back on any time you want to come back and see Harriet, because she's so enthusiastic, she almost wears me out talking to her. I can talk myself and we're talking all the time. Come on in here in the museum here and see this display on the flag and take a good look at it. It might be our last flag you get to see, the way the world's going. Our flag is hanging by a thread. Yeah.
Hard as rock. Yeah.
You can't even do that.
Here, same way right here.
Yeah, that one isn't quite, but this one is definitely braided. That. And then you even go back here. Look at these.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yep.
Oh, and see, Don, do you have that rock in your pocket, that glass?
Oh yeah, you keep that too for yourself.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted, because it was for your talk.
Don't cut yourself.
And that wouldn't be. See, I thought it was just torn.
I did
like
too.
if you tear a piece
No,
of cloth.
see these
Yeah,
frames
that's-
right here?
They're
they
all
go
going
straight.
this way.
You take a knife, I got a knife here, but you
Yeah.
cut that again, it would be a straight, pretty even cut.
Yeah.
And a scissors will show the same way.
It's frayed a little bit because of the jaggedness of the.
You see, but
Yeah.
if you had this, you could just go like that,
Yeah.
because it's really sharp. Careful, don't get cut.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd have a heck of a time cutting that with that. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it, I don't think.
Especially if it was hanging up.
And how would you hold it?
Yeah, and especially, even if there was a little teeny bit of a breeze, it wouldn't be that easy.
Yeah.
And,
I have
so,
a acquaintance from another town there that is on the
did you see
Legion,
that?
the retired flying squad up there.
Really,
He says
it's really
they
sharp, just be
we
careful you
retire
don't get cut, but.
2,000 to 3,000 every year.
And my friend
Right.
had her
And
horse,
large towns,
had
I've seen that.
it was braided,
Oh, really?
and it, like its neck would go down like
Now you
this.
get one.
There was one braid from here and one here,
See if it's-
about this long,
Just
and,
Right. Yeah.
and they met, and then they
Can't
braided
explain it.
this. Well, the